this is the anniversary course, the last class of 1966, 50 years ago. Anne Arundel County was slow to desegregating, but they finally did, and this was closed. And then we got together with some citizens, and we decided to redevelop this. It's now 3 usages. It houses the Boys and Girls Club, a senior citizens, a living facility, and we have a senior citizen section in the back. We also have a football field, that's a soccer field, that's world class, and it's all set and ready to go. This is the Legacy Center, and what we do here is we try to work memorabilia here to remind us of the times when this was segregation. Some of you don't remember segregation because you're not old enough, but for those of you who do, you know what I'm talking about. Again, welcome. And if you ever get the opportunity to stop by, we'd be happy to take you on a tour and be happy to take a check from you too for a donation. Thank you, Brother.
Each of you should have an agenda. If somebody doesn't have an agenda, please let us know, because we'll be following the agenda. Anybody not have an agenda, please raise your hand and she'll get it to you. Covering a lot of topics this evening, and the program may seem to be moving rapidly, but that's because we want to cover a lot of territory. I'd like to ask Michelle and Sarah to come forward for a second. I want to acknowledge. For those of you who have not eaten yet, there's plenty of food in the back, plenty of beverages, but I would like to ask you to join me in thanking these 2 wonderful women for helping us to have our food today. Give a round of applause. Sarah is the president of a group called District 30 Democratic Club. And she's going to give you a 15 to 20 second commercial why this particular election in 2016 is probably the most important election that we will have in the 21st century.
That's a tall order. Thank you, Mark. Again, my name is Sarah Alfred. District 30 Democratic Club, as many of you know, our mission is simple: it's to elect Democrats. We've been watching what's happening on the Republican side for a few months now, and I think every day we wake up and say, it just can't be. I don't know about you guys, but the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, has said some terrible things about a lot of people, almost every group of Americans I can think of besides straight white men. There's so many reasons why it's important, but the Supreme Court is probably the most important reason, and I think everybody here knows how important it is that we have a Democratic president, and even if we shouldn't have Donald Trump appointing the next 3 justices of the Supreme Court. So thank you for letting us be here, and the District 30 Democratic Club meets every 4th Wednesday of the month at Union Jacks. This month we have Daniel Taft, who's a pollster, who's going to come and talk to us about Anne Arundel County and thoughts and feelings there. So thank you for having us.
One of the things we do each month is we find volunteers like this group who will provide the dinner and the beverage. If there's someone who will be willing to do it next month, we have a special guest. It's going to be the county executive, Steve Shue, who will be our featured speaker. Do we have any volunteers who will take care of the food and beverage for next month? Would you all join me in giving a round of applause to Arlene Jackson, who's just said she'll do it. Arlene?
Since it's Ms. Jackson, I'll help.
Oh, wonderful. You got some help there, Arlene. Ms. Bradenberg, would you please come forward? As we set the tone for tonight's meeting, our first topic is going to be on education. And the two questions that I want people to bear in mind as we listen to these presentations. We'll be joined by the President of the Board of Education at 6:30 p.m. While that's being distributed, some of you heard Earl Brown give the history of this school, that this once was a segregated high school in Anne Arundel County. Something happened 63 years ago this month. 63 years ago this month, a Supreme Court unanimously ruled that segregation was unconstitutional and that every public school had to desegregate. And they used the following language: with all deliberate speed. All deliberate speed. The idea was that every person, every student, would get a quality education. The year was 1954. 50 years to the day that Supreme Court decision came out, the NAACP, every member, every former African-American school board member in Anne Arundel County, churches, and others filed a formal complaint with the Department of Education. 1 year later, in 2005, the Justice Department was able to mediate an agreement between the NAACP and all these groups, and the agreement was that we would close the achievement gap. It has now been 12 plus years since that has happened. So what we've asked tonight is that we receive a presentation, first from the Office of County Executive, the Director of Education, to talk about what she sees her role as it relates to education specifically. We've asked her to take a look at previous resolutions that were unanimously passed by the County Council, and to give us some working idea on how she sees her office working to bring about equality in education for all students. We've asked each of the presenters to be no more than 10 minutes in their presentation. And the reason for that is we want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions on any subject related to education. And then we're going to move to the next subject. So, do anyone have any questions before we turn it over? Thank you.
I want to say special thank you for having me. Is this better? No. Sure.
Can I see that, please? Can I?
Better.
No?
I'm just going to speak loudly then. I'm going to take a couple seconds and just introduce myself. My name is Emily Brandenburg. I'm a former Board of Education member. I sat on the Board of Education for nearly 4 years. I was a Maui appointment. I was District 33. I resigned in the end of November of 2014 to come on to the County Executive. I work for a County Executive, Steve Shue, and in that role, I'm his education officer, and this is a newly created position in county government. It's a little different than the way we've done things before, and I think it's very smart. My role is to maintain the relationship and a working dialogue with the Board of Education, the community colleges, and the libraries. But I think what becomes very important and what's a little unique about this job is nobody reports to Steve. The superintendent doesn't report to Steve, the president of the college doesn't report to Steve, the CEO of the library system doesn't report to the county executive. All three of them have their own board of trustees, or board of education, or whatever else it happens to be. So it's a real one of the things that I wanted to do is walk you through our proposed budget for the Board of Education, some changes that are coming to the School Board Nominating Commission, and then share a little bit more about my role and how it's unique and how the dialogue and relationships work and the progress that we're seeing in the county as a result of it. So in front of you, I've given you guys the Board of Education documents from their most recent board meeting. This is publicly available, it's on their website. But what I wanted to do is sit down and talk a little bit about this budget. I'm very, very proud of this budget. The county executive is proud of this budget. It was a collaborative effort. It was a huge lift. There was a lot of big ticket items, but I think we were able to work very closely and come together with a fabulous proposal, in my opinion. So I wanted to highlight just a few things. The first one is healthcare. Superintendent Arlotto asked for $15 million to shore up their healthcare fund. The Board of Education had their auditor take a look at it, and the board felt that $15 million probably wasn't going to be enough. So they asked for $20 million, and you can see that on, where did they put it? Oh, employer share of healthcare, $20 million. That's an enormous lift. When you consider that the county this year had $51 million to spend on the entire county, asking $20 million to shore up healthcare is a significant lift. We sat down, we looked at what other counties have done across the state, we looked at other options, some outside of the box thinking, and said, what are some things that we can do that gives us the ability to be able to do this without having to cut other support services across the county. So this year, we decided to apply for exclusion from the Maryland State Department of Education for non-recurring costs. And so Maryland State Department of Education last Friday, thank goodness before I put our budget down, said, yes, you guys are approved. One-time cost, you guys can put this $10 million in the Board of Ed Healthcare Fund. This will keep them solvent for the remainder of the year. We're going to continue to watch it closely. The board is going to have to make some adjustments on their side. They're going to have to look at utilization. They're going to have to look at co-pays. They're going to have to look at percentages that the employees pay in, et cetera, et cetera. But this is something that we're working very closely with the Board of Education. We'll continue to monitor month over month. And I feel like it was a huge win. Anne Arundel County's never done this before. This is the first time Anne Arundel County has gone down this path for budgeting. And it's exciting and it's a nice one. The other things that were really important that we put in was we hear so often from our teachers and from our educators and from all system employees that they're ready to have regular steps come back on a regular basis. Every Board of Education signs a contract with the labor unions. Each contract is signed specifically just between the Board of Education and the bargaining unit. It's only between those two parties. There is a clause in there, it's on page 3, section J. It says dependent upon available funding. When we went through the recession, there were several years, 4 years, where unfortunately our teachers and quite often county employees and all sorts of people weren't able to get raises. We're trying to get back on step. We're trying to get back on track. We're trying to be able to get regular steps every year as part of our contractual agreement. So this year, our budget was able to fund a step. And it's not a step for just teachers, it's a step for all school system employees, which I think is significant. Other big ticket items in here that I think are important, I mean, this budget truly was significantly about compensation. We had a shore up the teacher pension shift, it was $2.6 million. We had the ability to fund that as well this year. And then some of the more exciting things. Are you guys familiar with Dr. Alato's Triple D program? So one of the things that we did when we looked outside of maintenance of effort, again, when we looked outside of what we can do, we pulled out all of the one-time costs when we started this program. So we asked for 2 clusters. He asked for Northeast and he asked for West. We said, all right, what are the computers? What are the desks? What are the textbooks? What are the technologies? What are things that you only have to buy one time? State board, can we pay for that in a separate bucket for the one-time cost and then fund the teachers and the reoccurring costs inside maintenance of effort? So we were able to fund that fully to his request. The other fabulous things are the 33 teachers per enrollment in Arundel County's growing school system. We're up to over 80,000 and it's continuing to grow for the next 10 years or so. Board of Ed asked for 33 teachers for enrollment growth. We were able to fund those 33 teachers. I think other important highlights from this budget is Board of Ed asked for 100 new positions. We funded 90 of them. Significant. It's almost easier if you go through and say what we didn't fund. Things that we weren't able to cover at this time were professional development, the $5 raise for the home hospital 10 teachers for class size reduction, and then starting the dismissal shift and start times. So that's a really big, quick overview of the capital budget. I'm happy to answer any questions on that before we go to, or the operating budget before we go to the capital budget.
I have a question I'd like to ask you about the Anne Arundel County Public Library.
Sure.
That's a line item for the library funds. And there's one other question I want to ask. The library has a board of governors.
Yes.
And they have a little quasi-board.
Board of trustees, and then they have the foundation board.
Board of Foundation Board. And what my question is that since its inception, they have never had an African-American black person, man or woman, on that,
Which board?
the big one, the main one.
I set up board of trustees. And there's
Board of Trustees, who's there now?
There's 23 of them, 24 I think include the attorney, and there is 3 or 4 African American
Yeah,
representatives.
okay, how long has that been? 'Cause I know, I guess maybe up to the last 8 or 9 years, they weren't any when I checked, and they could have changed.
I'm happy to pull the information historically. At this time, there's absolutely African American representation on that board.
Okay, and since you sit on that board, another question. In Anne Arundel County, we have some 18 African American authors who have published their books. And this right here is the shelf right there, including my daddy, named Bell Brown. My question is, why is it that we cannot get any of those African American books into the library?
I'm happy to sit down and chat with Skip Alden, if you like, the CEO of the library system. I think that's a question I'm happy to bring to the board as well. I don't have an answer for you.
As long as we know, as long as you know, that it's something that is on our minds.
Certainly.
Thank you.
No problem. You want to talk about the library budget? Because that's actually something fabulous that the county executive did as well.
Yes, what is that budget?
So the budget is nearly $20 million, but one of the things that they asked for was to increase their materials and construction budget. And we couldn't do it all at once, so over the next 3 years, we're gonna make their request by giving them additional funds until we get them back to being whole and where they feel like it's a reasonable level to be able to continue to buy materials.
Thank you.
You can operate a budget for education at this point, because of the time frame we've got. I want to make sure that people have plenty of time to ask questions.
Sure. Is there any other operating budget, board of ed questions?
I had 2 questions. One has to do, I don't know whether this was the capital, but I just want to pass it out, throw it out there, see how it fits. Special ed, has there been any consideration to expansion of the special ed budget for like handicapped, disabled, learning disabilities? And then part of that, part 2 of that question had to do with African American studies within the school system and the diversity of the teachers. You just indicated that you have 100 positions. What is your plan for recruiting and hiring more minority teachers, vis-a-vis African American Hispanic teachers, into the school system?
Certainly. So, 2 things. One is when we come on board with the budget, there's 14 state categories, and we just put that broadly in state categories with consultation with the board, with the budget office, with those sort of things, down to a granular level. No, that's not something we get into. We did fund the increase in special ed teachers that they were looking for because enrollment growth in general in Arundel County has about 10% of their population who are considered special ed students. But as far as expansion of that program or something of sorts, that's not a policy decision. That's not something that belongs with the county executive. And then concerning recruitment of staff, that is absolutely a human resource question at the Board of Education. That is not in the purview of the county executive.
I think that's something that needs to be
Yeah, the
addressed.
president will be joining us, and that's probably sir.
Thank you.
One thing, 2 things, one is arts education. I look for that in the city. Line up for increase.
Again, we fund very broadly those 14 state categories. It's sort of big picture. I think that's probably going to be a better question for the Board of Education.
And the second one is the proposed, I guess you could call it contractor and subcontractor with the
that's where, so we do, with the school system, we have our budget, and we also have smaller budgets, whether it's the Department of Health, or our school resource officers, or any other different little smaller programs that then are included in partnerships with the local Board of Education, but they don't fall under this budget.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to spend a couple minutes on the capital budget? This one will be relatively quickly as well. This was two big budgets that we put forward. Both were, one was the operating. So all in, the county provided over $20 million more than the previous year to the Board of Education in their operating budget. The county was required by law to give $6.2 million. And I really feel the county executive did a very nice job with this Board of Ed budget. And I'm proud to be part of it. I'm proud to have my name on it. We can wrap up with that, but it's a good budget, in my opinion. The capital budget was also historic and record level. The highlights are 5 elementary schools that are going to be under construction. They're Manorview, High Point, George Cromwell, Jessup, and Arnold. Those were 5 schools that were left over from the 2006 NGT study. You know, everybody talks about the new 2015 one that came out in August. We left these 6 schools, they sort of almost like hold harmless. These were schools that had county funds already attributed to them, whether it was through feasibility, some of them had some design. And we said, these schools are obviously going to go. We're not going to throw them in the mix with NGT when we reorder all the schools. We've got to finish these up. So they were sort of held harmless, not sort of, they were. And those were the 6 schools that were remaining as priorities for the previous NGT study, those 6 elementary schools. The Board of Education put forward their budget with their new MGT priorities from the 2015 study, including Edgewater, Tyler Heights, Richard Henry Lee, and the Crofton Area High School. We funded the feasibility for Edgewater, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee, and then we funded the design for Crofton Area High School. Crofton Area is a little bit unique. It doesn't need a feasibility study. It's just land ready to go, so you can start the design right away. So those are sort of the big highlights from the capital budget. I don't know if anybody had any questions about that.
Well, for full disclosure, we had a conversation recently in reference to the kind of list prioritization in reference to which schools not only are undergoing current construction, which involves substantial investment, but also those schools that are undergoing a feasibility study in advance. And so the question that we asked was, so what was the tool that was utilized to prioritize, let's say, a school such as Caucus and Savannah Park, and some of these other schools versus schools that are obviously publicly overcrowded and adequate? And the question was that it's kind of by chance, or it was just based on the fact that studies were only run sooner in some of these other schools. So that was something in this area, and specifically as African American constituents in this county. Our question is it by chance that a lot of these schools represent certain kind of socioeconomic and demographic and geographic areas that put some of our other schools that are undergoing a cultural shift and also a population shift that don't fall on this list?
I think what becomes important here is historical perspective.
Right.
In 2013 is when Savannah Park High School started. This will give you a little bit more about my background as well. The way that I ended up on the board was I was a mom of Benfield Elementary. I have 4 children, and that's my first and foremost priority. I can't wait to get home to them. I miss them being back at work. And I was one of those moms who said, this is unbelievably unreasonable. Benfield Elementary is ranked higher by MGT and by the Board of Education, except Savannah Park High School is going in front of it.
Right.
And I was beside myself, and I had done graphs and reports, and I was going to make my point. And then you talk to our budget officer, Don Hanna, who tells you a little bit about spending affordability and debt affordability and what you can actually do in any given program. And I thought it was really interesting. I just pulled this data the other day because I wanted to share it with somebody. So in 2013, when we made the decision to do Savannah Park High School, because Northeast High School is finishing up, and we only have the ability to do 1 high school at a time.
Right.
So Northeast High School is finishing up, Savannah Park High School is starting. There was 3 elementary schools that were in front of Savannah Park High School that got bumped below. They were West Annapolis, Rolling Knolls, my beloved Benfield Elementary. And here we are, fast forward, Savannah Park is finishing up, Board of Education has said, hey, our next project to do is Caucus High School. That's our next high school that we want built. So we're starting to design on that. And 3 elementary schools, you know, are moved below again. We just happen to be for that we're above, which are Tyler Heights, Richard and Relay, and Edgewater Elementary. And it's almost exactly as it happened, you know, just several years ago. And the reality is you can only do one high school. It's this huge one. It's $50 million a year for a couple of years. You have to squeeze in as many projects as you can around it.
Absolutely. And so one of the reasons why I asked that question is because I think, well, there's the policymaker part and then there's the fiscal management part. But then there's also the child development part and understanding that in the trajectory of education, the investment in early education, the investment early is money well spent, and it's also sustainable. But to undertake these much larger, you know, huge projects at the high school level before you invest in the early education part is like counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. And that is the question that we asked earlier on to get some understanding of that, because it isn't just that there are these large, to me, nonsensical, huge projects, which I understand, but it's that you can't throw in one. You can't throw in one of these schools that clearly have a need in terms of their space, in terms of the amount of students that they can get in one classroom. Like that's the question as constituents, as county constituents, that I would want. And this obviously is not challenging you because of your position, but I would think we would like to have some type of matrix and some type of understanding as to how these investments take place, because they do reflect on us as institutions.
I think you're absolutely right. It's one of the concerning early childhood education, and one of the things that I applaud Dr. Arlotto for regularly. It's been his initiative. It has been sort of the shift that you've seen as Dr. Maxwell left and Dr. Arlotto took the reins. Is this continued investment and continued focus on early childhood education? It's one of the reasons we were so excited to be able to fund the Triple E program and its early literacy initiatives as well. And so it's twofold. You have what happens in the building, and then you also have the instruction part of it as well. And it's this balancing act. It's trying to there's only so much money, right? And so trying to ride the middle as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. First, I wanted to mention that I had a chance to work with County Executive Shu on a couple of projects. Voice for Talk, he's a big supporter. He's a great person to work with in every way. I just wanted to mention, though, Mr. Brandenburg, that you said that this is a budget that you're proud of. You work for the County Executive, so I would expect you to say that. Right? So I would expect that. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be back there telling you don't like it. There's other things about you don't like
Okay,
it.
well, that's fair, but
Let me make 2 points, if I may. Let me make 2 points. First, you skipped Tyler Heights Elementary School. I don't understand that.
I said we found a feasibility for Tyler Heights.
Right, but it was skipped in the construction portion, right? So,
Yeah, it's not
Tyler Heights said 91% farm students, right? Prairie View Mill students, 91%, 131% of capacity. So, how did Bill Caucus High School, how did that movement get in front?
Certainly tried to explain that, and I had said if we look back to where we were at Suburban Park High School and how I started my path down this was the exact same thing. You can only build one high school at a time. That's the reality of the situation. So Suburban Park is finishing up. Board of Education has selected Providence for next
Okay, so I go to your equity advisory committee, you know. I think it would be helpful if County Executive Chief Review would come by and talk to us more about this, because we need to figure out what you know. We're Tyler Heights grades overall. You know about the portable, right? You have Tyler grades and portable. You know about that,
I
right?
do. I will tell you, it makes you feel any better, and this was where I started this whole thing. Benfield Elementary was more crowded, more crowded than Tyler Heights was, and it's today.
And portables?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Taylor Heights has more portables than Benfield did because Taylor Heights has significantly smaller classes.
Okay. So, you know, that's what.
I understand. I mean, I'm suggesting, I understand your plight, and I understand where you're coming from. I live it. The reality is, you know, the way capital budgeting works, and so you have to look at it for
Okay,
it.
so
There's so much
based on how much the county executive could have spent on education, how much of that was actually spent? That's another question I'd like to answer, right? What's the difference between what you approved and what you could have approved?
Well, so you can approve what the Board of Education asked for. We approved all the $2.9 million the Board of Education asked for.
Okay.
So I think you can say that.
Why wasn't it? That's my question.
There's competing needs across the entire county.
Right, okay. So that's my point. So you're saying you're proud of this budget,
I'm absolutely proud of this budget.
but if it wasn't funded to the extent they requested it, then what were the competing interests? And how much do we know were political?
You have police, you have fire, you have health, you have a heroin epidemic, you have all sorts of other things. We have a library system that I think is very valuable. We have a community college, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a Board of Education budget that everything but $2.9 million was funded. That's significant.
So I'd like to have a further discussion on that.
Sir?
And Mika, one of the things that might be helpful for you, at next month's meeting, the county executive is going to be here. And that'll be a great opportunity as well to find out what his rationale was in terms of this
Well, I
project.
just those questions about
I
that.
mean, yeah, I mean, the only question that you are still looking for is what the
Well,
matter.
I want to have more discussion about it.
And if I can actually focus on these last two issues, and then we're going to be shifting on to the school work side of the equation. One, please tell us what, if anything, the county executive is going to do with those resolutions that were unanimously passed by the county council asking the county executive to be involved in this whole issue of closing the achievement gap. And you mentioned this briefly. I'm sure people will be interested in knowing what the county executive's rationale is around the whole issue of the nomination commission. Why you were so adamantly opposed to.
So, House Bill 172, it's actually an interesting story. It started out as we have 6 chambers of commerce here in Anne Arundel County. And we have on the School Board Nominating Commission as it's currently, in its current state, has the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce, which has 1 seat, which is held. And it's held by a couple of people over the course of the year since the inception of the School Board Nominating Commission. But we thought, we put forward this bill saying what would be really fantastic is to make sure that everybody has a voice at the table. South County Chamber of Commerce looks at things very, very differently than West County Chamber of Commerce versus North County versus Annapolis, et cetera. So we put in a bill that said we'd like to rotate the seat every 2 years. And that was our bill that we put forward. That was House Bill 172. Where it stands now is they have altered the membership at School Board Nominating Commission. And what they've done is the governor had 5 appointments. Those appointments are no longer to be seated as of June 1st of this year. And there will be new appointments. There will be 3 appointments from the county executive. There's 1 now. There will be 2 additional appointments there. There will be 1 appointment by the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, which we still have. 1 appointment by the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce, which is where this whole bill started. 1 member appointed by the Anne Arundel County Community College Board of Trustees. A member by AEL, both of those are already existing. 2 members appointed by the Anne Arundel County Council of PTAs. Right now we have 1 member, we'll add an additional member. 1 member appointed by the Anne Arundel County branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. 1 member appointed by Castle of Maryland, and 1 member appointed by CPAC, which is Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. And that will be what the new commission looks like moving forward. And so I think the county executive has been pretty clear. He's written articles in the paper, there's been columns, what his position is on this, but that is where it started, and that's where it's at now. And that was what we'll do moving forward, is having those, it's a 13-member commission now. We'll still make recommendations to the governor. The governor still has appointment authority, and that's what School Board Nominating Commission sits now. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
I want to make her a question.
Yeah. No, I'm just, I listened to you with interest earlier tonight when you were discussing the internet. That's some elementary schools were in that sort of situation where they desperately need funding. I know that Councilman Trump has brought to the attention of Mr. Shu and Mr. Lago conditions prevalent right now at holidays in elementary school. This happens to be the most overcrowded school in the state, bar none. And for the life of me, I mean, these parents are screaming bloody murder. And still, we have a start date of somewhere in 2023. What does that do to the population of Georgetown, East Elementary, Hillsborough Elementary? Because depending on how they redistrict and the needed space in those two elementary schools in that cluster, I don't see it happening. I don't think, you know the issues. 2023, that's why the way we look at children in grades 1 to 6, 10 to 5, 1 to 6. Right now, parents are bringing their children, including the preschool children, to Tyler Heights in the morning. The children from 1 to 6 are going into the elementary school. The preschoolers will get on a bus and being bused over to Georgetown East. That's a cost to the county and to the Board of Education for those bus services, drivers, gas, mileage, whole 9 yards. All of that can be cost out. And I just, for the life of me, I need Tyler Heights moved up on the schedule. This is just not going to go away. And I think that with the Board of Education in this county, and with the county seat here, we've got to do for our children too, here as well. In the city of Annapolis. I understand that the real estate, and I think I heard Will allude to that earlier. Sometimes the folk who pay the taxes for all these beautiful homes, other places in the county, may get some preference. But
I think I can understand and I appreciate your perspective, but if you look through and we look at the construction that's happened in Annapolis recently, especially at the schools, it's been significant. And we were actually in part of the APF task force. One of the things that we were looking at was the fees and what went into Annapolis. And so you go through, and Annapolis Elementary is new, and you have Georgetown, which is relatively new, Eastport is getting an addition. And with the exception of Tyler Heights and Hillsmere, most of Annapolis is brand new.
and I have seen that
Right.
construction, and without any significant building of housing developments in the city of Annapolis in the last 10 years, where the children would have come out of. And I am a neighbor at Apollo, and not for the life of me, I don't see one development. That's new. The hoop is about Crystal Springs, that's yet to be here. The population at that school is still overcrowded, the most crowded school in the state. So I think the resources from some of those schools, of course it's in my district, so I got proud about it, because I hear about it. So,
I don't know where it is in the state. I don't know where you guys are doing that. It could be the most private school in the state. I don't know. I can certainly check this too. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and I, can sympathize. I truly can. It is, we're doing the best we can.
And then honestly, I'm just gonna hold up on this, but given where we are and it's contextual, right? So this conversation probably would only happen this way in this room or in rooms like this. It would have to be a meeting of the Caucus stuff and everything. So these are all concerned citizens, not exclusively actively, I think there's those who run a cross section of the county's constituency, right? So I keep repeating that. Now, in the meeting, and it was public. I'm not the editor. This is like just disclosure. I'm the editor, and we met with the state meeting. And what was most appalling to me was the fact that, given the context of this conversation, when it came up about, when we talked about education quite extensively, he said, Republicans and Democrats see education differently. We think about education differently. And he went on to say that Republicans care about children learning and discipline and all the good stuff about education, and that Democrats, he framed it in a way where he said Democrats basically don't believe in the same things that Republicans believe in, right? He said,
I wasn't there.
sorry, he said it, so it's public. So,
When did he say this?
this was last Thursday.
Where was it?
Yeah,
He was at the
Yeah,
editorial. He was actually, okay.
money goes. If you are a policymaker who's proposing money, who's investing in education and schools based on a partisan ideology that you very clearly state, he very clearly delineated, like, this is for Republicans, this is for Democrats. So, to me, my logical conclusion is that